Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to Elite Dangerous. Now last week, Frontier posted some additional details regarding the upcoming changes to Galnet, further clarifying the impact that these changes will have on the game. The information also gave some insight, or some hints at least, that this whole change is focused on, well, future content. So in this video, I'll go over the details Frontier discussed and talk about my thoughts on what this could mean for Elite over the next year or two. So for those of you who are unaware, Frontier recently announced that they are making some cutbacks to Galnet, the in-game news service. The cutbacks involve removing all off-screen content from the service, and by that they mean all articles and news which relate to the background lore. In short, the only content we will see on Galnet from this point forwards is content that directly affects and can be found within the game. No more mysterious side stories that are unrelated to gameplay then. Now Frontier actually addressed this towards the end of their forum post, but I'll mention it here as it's entirely relevant. The recent Gan Romero storyline that some of you may have read was an off-screen narrative, and Frontier then went on to say, the fact that some people assumed it had an in-game component and went searching for Romero was for me further evidence that off-camera Galnet stories could be detrimental to the player experience, and it cemented our desire to ensure that all Galnet content related to things that were actually in the game. So my feelings about Galnet are that whilst it's always painted a half-decent picture for the background elements of the Elite Galaxy, the fact that the articles are not reflected in-game is a huge deal-breaker. Now over the years, there's been dozens of examples where parts of the community, most often on the official forums, have dived into wild theories based on those Galnet articles, and the players then assumed that these stories would have physical repercussions in the game. Most often, that turned out not to be the case, so whilst theory crafting was no doubt fun for the people who got involved in that, it's certainly more than fair to say that in the end, it rarely added any value to the game itself. So even from that alone, there's an argument that can be made for removing off-screen Galnet content. At any rate, quite naturally, players had a number of questions about this, and Frontier went into some detail in an attempt to address these. So let's take a look at some of these questions. What led to this decision? Producing content for Galnet takes a significant amount of time, especially when you factor in conception, editing and translation. For me, content such as interstellar initiatives and scenarios we added into the game last year have a greater impact on the game than off-camera Galnet storylines. So when we, as a team, look to the features and updates we intend to deliver in the coming months and years, we feel it's in the best interests of the game to ensure the writing team can support those features and make them the best they can possibly be from a narrative point of view. Consequently, the decision to remove off-camera narratives is very much about refocusing the team rather than reducing the amount of time and effort we devote to the narrative side of the game. So, on the surface of things, this answer seems pretty straightforward. Off-screen Galnet is taking up more time than Frontier would care to commit to the game. I find the reasoning for this to be very interesting, however, as they point to the future features and updates. Now, the next major update, of course, is the 2020 release, which still hasn't been announced, and I'm speculating here, of course, but it seems that Frontier want to redirect the story team onto working on that particular update. Maybe it will have a heavy story focus then. That would be good if so, as in-game story is something that Elite generally lacks. Now of course, do keep in mind that this is also being done to help refocus onto its interstellar initiatives, as they mentioned right here. So with these cutbacks, will interstellar initiatives get more stories, details and lore? Yes. By refocusing the writing team, we will be able to produce more supporting content for interstellar initiatives. During the Bridging the Gap initiative, it was pointed out, quite rightly, that reactions from Ramtar and Aegis could have been more appropriate. Refocusing our efforts means we can devote time to producing these kinds of reaction pieces. Some players have also been asking if Galnet in future might focus on stuff going on with the larger player groups, and this is something that Frontier say they want to look at into the future. In terms of further clarification on off-screen or off-camera stories, Frontier reiterate that these are fully removed and not being merely reduced, so they'll be gone entirely. This also means that the overall content on Galnet is going to be reduced, and that they confirm that this isn't due to the team being understaffed, and mentioned that they are actually taking on an additional full-time writer. And again, here's another interesting note. We have an ambitious production schedule ahead of us, and it was therefore necessary to reposition the writing team so it could properly support that schedule. With the next major update releasing in the later half of 2020, perhaps even towards the end of 2020, Frontier have around 12 to 15 months of work ahead of them. And I'd actually speculate that this is the ambitious production schedule that Frontier are referring to in the previous answer. Now, it's purely a personal opinion here, but my take is that this entire deal with Galnet is largely due to the team now working on the 2020 content. Is that update perhaps going to have a heavy story-driven component? Meanwhile, Frontier confirmed that Galnet Audio will remain in the game and that they will still finish the current Alliance Festival of Culture storyline. So that pretty much covers all the additional details that Frontier provided, and this actually paints a far clearer picture than their original message. Really, my thoughts on this is that this is exactly how Frontier should have announced the change in the first place. Originally, they gave very little context to the Galnet cutback, and this caused people to wonder what is going on. So then, what are your thoughts on this? Do you feel that Frontier are refocusing towards the 2020 update perhaps? Could that update maybe contain a campaign-driven component? Or maybe Frontier simply want to refocus onto interstellar initiatives and community goals? Do let me know what you think in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.